let's get into a conversation with the man with all the jokes. Uh, Actually, it doesn't just have all the jokes. What an incredible human being he also is. After selling out shows across the country, the happiness economy returns. But with even more heart, pain, and punchlines, as Jason Goliath and Nicholas Goliath have now redefined comedy as a tool for healing, revealing, and honest reflection on what happiness really looks like on the African continent, especially in South Africa today. And to tell us a bit more about this tour, we are joined by the man himself, Jason Goliath. Jason, good afternoon and welcome to The Upside.
Thank you for having me, and what a wonderful introduction. I feel honored. Thank you.
Listen, that's all you. I just had to piece the words together. But incredible work that you're always doing with your brothers. And I need to find out, happiness is such a broad term. Let's start here perhaps. What does happiness mean to you, Jason Goliath? Jason, we have you back on the line. Sorry for that. Are you still with us?
I am, and it's such a terrible travesty that with all the technology we have, we must be used to not being on the line anymore. It's something that it plays with my happiness on a daily basis.
And in actual fact, sticking to that theme of happiness, I was asking earlier, and I know you were trying to answer it, what does happiness mean to you personally as Jason Goliath?
So I think you alluded to it earlier. It's such a layered question, which begs a layered response. So as I said, Nicholas and I spent hundreds of hours having conversations about what happiness is. We were devastated when we realized that if you ask a room with 100 people in it, maybe 20% have an idea, and 50% of those 20% give you generic answers like my kids make me happy, my husband makes me happy, things that are obviously supposed to give you joy. And we just couldn't understand it with so much literature being dedicated to happiness, movies, the pursuit of happiness. And I think something that we all crave so much. So we started a podcast called The Happiness Economy to literally just investigate and get data. So we invited people who, based on their Instagram, for example, we thought were happy. Almost everybody's happy on Instagram.
Always.
And the sole purpose was to interrogate 100. No one misses that they would order on Instagram. And our sole purpose was to interrogate that happiness. And see if possibly we can come up with a formula that you can apply to your life. And by the end of that, let me tell you, firstly, I realized that my idea of happiness was completely off the mark. We realized that happiness only exists in the moment, and the thing that most of us seem to be searching for, based on the fairy tales that we all listened to growing up, is more peace and joy than happiness itself, as happiness is a momentary thing, where joy and peace, I think, is the thing that you're looking for overall. And essentially what the show does is it gives us a platform in terms of the comedy version now to share some ridiculous stories that really, make us happy and joyful, and help us understand the little keywords that we've derived from all of the interviews that we did.
Well, we certainly hope that we'll get a story or two from you before this interview ends. We're currently in conversation with Jason Goliath to tell us about their upcoming tour, The Happiness Economy, with his brother Nicholas. And if you are interested in joining and showing support, and if you've always just been a fan of the Goliaths, this is a conversation you do not want to miss out on. It's 20 minutes after 3 p.m. Central African time. We continue the conversation right after this. It is exactly 21 minutes after 3 p.m. Central African time. Welcome back to The Upside on Channel Africa, The African Perspective. Catch us live on our social media platforms at Channel Africa on Facebook and YouTube. We are still in conversation with the man of the moment, Jason Goliath, about the upcoming The Happiness Economy tour with his brother Nicholas. Jason, through your podcast, The Happiness Economy, you've interviewed so many people.
Yeah.
What have you found have been the reasons for their happiness in terms of what different people pursue and perceive as being happiness or happy? What have you found have been similarities amongst the guests who have been on your show in them expressing what happiness really means?
So I think the main one was realizing that kind of the older you get, the less you worry about what people think. And I think we live in a time, particularly now, where we are so concerned about A, what others are doing, and B, what others' opinions are
Yeah.
of ourselves. And I think that, I figured out that that's why the saying life begins at 40, that's where it comes from, because it's at 40 when you realize, why am I stressing about people that are not involved in my debit orders? Why do I give other people's opinions so much power? So that, coupled with the fact that I think once you get a bit older, you kind of figure out what you want and are less influenced by what everybody around you has or is doing or has achieved already. And it gives you a much clearer focus on kind of what you are trying to do and what you are trying to achieve. Those basics, I think, were present in just about every conversation. And then being able to have not only acceptance of self and where you are and acceptance of other people, but the way you perceive the world is the way you will enjoy the world. And very often, I think a lot of us don't manage our perceptions of the world. We don't manage the way we see things, the way we react to things. Nicholas's favorite quote within the show, and I feel like I'm giving so much away, is, life is basically the 5% rule, which states life is 5% what happened, 95% how you respond. And I think that so many of us allow insignificant things to impact us and give insignificant things a 95% reaction where so much doesn't deserve a reaction.
Jason, you have said many a time that laughter heals, laughter reveals. Let's talk about the people that you were listening
Absolutely.
to growing up. People, and maybe not just growing up, in your own life, who have been icons that have brought laughter and revelation to your own life when you were going through difficulties. Who are those people? Who are those stand-up comedians? Who are those actors, if you will, who inspired that for you and who inspired you through the pain and through the challenges?
Oh man, what a question! There's so many. I think from a comedic point of view, the first comedian I fell in love with, like so many of us, was Eddie Murphy's Raw and Delirious tapes went so viral before virality was even a thing. And watching him in those leather outfits just tell story to the world that we thought weren't supposed to. You're not supposed to tell stories about your auntie. You're not supposed to tell stories about how poor you were. You're not supposed to share those stories. And this guy just had this way of expressing stories in such a relatable way. So I think Eddie definitely played a big part. And then I think the one that got me into comedy, I wasn't even a big fan of Chris Rock, but in 2008, Chris Rock came to South Africa. I was so broke. One of my friends said, look, he's not going to buy an expensive ticket. He'll buy a cheap ticket so that he can buy two, and him and I can go together. And watching Chris Rock in front of 5,000 people at the Sun City Super Bowl, I will never forget the moment when I realized that Chris Rock had me and 5,000 people in physical pain.
Oh, wow.
Like we were physically hunched over. And I looked at this environment, and after thinking to myself, yes, can this guy just stop for 20 seconds just so my abs can release, you know what I mean? And I looked around the room, and I realized that this is true power. This guy doesn't have a weapon. This guy is not spitting negativity, but just based on his words, he's able to make us physically feel something. And I think it was that moment when I realized, like, that was the most attracted to power I had ever been. I was like, I want that power of being able to get a physical reaction from people, an involuntary one at that, just using my words. So I think that was definitely a major influence. My favorite comedian is Bernie Mac, and I think when I watched the late great Bernie Mac till today, it was the fact that, you know, I, like him, I bully the audience into laughing. You're going to laugh whether you're in a good mood or not. We're going to break through whatever you were feeling before the show. And that's why I always say comedy is like a holiday for your soul. You know what I mean? You can't stress about life and laugh at the same time. And making somebody laugh is, I think, just that necessary, much needed break that everybody needs. And then in terms of locals, people like the late great Charlene Soete Richards. who would always play these amazingly South African characters that I could relate to. This was somebody that looked like me, looked like one of my aunties, sounded like one of my aunties, and helped, I think, so many people in my community believe that it was possible. And then I was fortunate enough to meet Charlene a couple of times, and the fact that she was exactly the same. And the same with people like Mark Lottering, where you meet them off stage and you are not disappointed as a fan, because as a human, they are just as joy-filled and peaceful as they were, portraying on stage. But there truly are too many to mention.
And Jason, I tell you what, you yourself have now become an icon where a lot of comedians, stand-up comedians wanting to get into the space are looking up to you and your brothers, and it's an amazing job that you guys are doing. Talk to us about the Happiness Economy. Give us the dates and where people can get their tickets.
So, man, we're so excited. Week one was unbelievable. The show is at the Pieter Toerien Theatre in Montecasino, and it's going to be running until the 6th of July with tickets available at Web Tickets. Week one was astounding, not only because people laughed, but, some of the best comments we've got was, this is the first show where we laughed until we cried and cried until we cried, because it's a really vulnerable show delivered in a way that we've never attempted before, and also just to, we're not up there trying to be motivational speakers, but I think the show's intention is definitely to inspire people based on the extensive research that we've done on the subject matter, and I think really gives people some wonderful insights into their own joy, their own peace, their own perceptions of happiness, and how at the end of the day it's up to you. You're going to decide. You're in control. You're the writer of the story, the director of this movie, and so far that's what it's been. So the show's called The Happiness Economy. If you don't buy into happiness and you just list a comedy show, come through, because it's very, very funny and I think it'll satisfy you. But if you're going through something, come through. If you know somebody that's going through something, come through. And I think so many of us secretly are, and being, Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, it really gives me joy that myself and Nick are up there talking about the type of things that we are, being as vulnerable as we are. And I also hope it's just an encouragement to men to go, it's okay to be vulnerable, it's okay to be, to feel, it's okay to cry, it's okay to laugh, it's okay.
Jason, I love this message and this story that you are sharing, and how important it is, especially for the modern man, where once upon a time it was frowned upon to cry and show your emotions. You are saying, listen, it is being a man that allows you to show those emotions and be a better human being. We wish you nothing but success for the Happiness Economy with your brother. Thank you so much for your time on The Upside this afternoon.
We will see you guys out at Monty again. Tickets out, Web Tickets. We're on until the 6th. Thank you so much for having me, and wishing you joy and peace, man.
I love that. The voice of Jason Goliath. Him and his brother Nicholas will be on the Happiness Economy tour. Check them out on Web Tickets at Montecasino, where they will be. It's now 30 minutes after 3 p.m. Central African time. For the last time on The Upside this afternoon, Musibudi Makura has your sports news.